Leukocytes. So leukocytes are the white blood cells. We use them to protect us against pathogens from invaders to the body. Patho, disease, generates genesis of pathogens, create pathology. So these are full cells. They have a nucleus, they have organelles, they don't have any hemoglobin. They are motile, they move. They are made in the bone marrow from the hemocytoblasts. They transport in the blood, but they work in the tissues. Most of the time, they work outside of the bloodstream in the interstitium of the tissues. So the blood is used to transport them there, and then they leave the blood vessels. The process of leaving the blood vessels is called diapedesis. Dia is through, as in diarrhea, that which passes through you. Diaphragm, through the anterior hollow. Dia, through. Ped, as in pedal, as in pedestal, as in foot, means foot. Esis is a process. So diapedesis is the process of stepping through the blood vessel wall. So the white blood cells squeeze out and into the interstitium this way. What makes them do that is chemotaxis, chemicals that carry taxi. So that you attract the leukocytes to the infection site using chemicals. There's 5 different major categories of leukocytes, and there's 2 classes of those 5. There are the 3 that have inclusions. These are little granules that are found in the cytoplasm. Here. They all have "phil" in their name. Eosinophil, basophil, and neutrophil. So these are the granulocytes because they have granules. The granules take stain. Now, the gram stain that we use has 2 parts to it. One part is a red dye called eosin, and the other part is a blue dye called base. And so if the granules like the red dye, phil is to like, as in hydrophilic, likes water, necrophilic, likes dead, betaphilic, likes children. Philadelphia is brotherly love. Phil is to love. If they love the red, they are eosinophils, so they stain red. If they like the blue, if they love the blue, they are basophils, and they stain blue. And neutrophils have granules that stain red and granules that stain blue, and so they tend to be purple, as Barney taught us. Red and blue make purple. The 2 types without granules are called the agranulocytes. There are the lymphocytes that are found mostly in the lymphatic organs, and the monocytes. Now, monocytes, when they are being transported in the blood, are called monocytes. When they undergo diapedesis and they move into the interstitium, they become motile. They get the ability to move, and then they are called macrophages, big eaters. Phage is to eat. Macro, big eater. So the first thing to remember is that the granulocytes have visible granules, and that's because they like stain. So the 3 that have "phil" in the name are the granulocytes. a student a few years ago said to me, "Oh, I'll remember that Phil has freckles." Agranulocytes, no granules. So they don't take up the stain that same way. Lymphocytes and monocytes, they don't have Phil in their name. So the neutrophils, there's a granulocyte, there's they're sometimes called polymorpho nucleocytes or polys. They they have this multi-lobe nucleus, and the granules stain to purple usually. Their job is they act as a phagocyte. They eat bacteria, and they release enzymes that target that bacteria. They are the most common of the white blood cells. Eosinophils, the nucleus has only got 2 lobes. The granules are red or pink when they're stained. They phagocytize antigen-antibody complexes, which we will see later, but they basically are the cleanup crew. And they also are involved with attacking parasites, especially worms. And what they do is they basically puke up digestive enzymes on the surface of the worm, and they kill the worms that way. There's much fewer of those. Basophils are dark blue to violet granules. They only have a small bilobe nucleus, and they're involved with inflammation. They release histamine. They cause vasodilation and increase the amount of capillary permeability, so they enhance diapedesis. They are involved. They have heparin, which is an anticoagulant, so it keeps blood flowing, and so they're very involved with inflammation, and they're very important because of that. The agranulocytes, the lymphocytes, are the second most common of the leukocytes. They have a large dark-stained nucleus with very little cytoplasm, and they're involved with coordinating specific immunity. They attack pathogens. Some of them produce antibodies, some of them just coordinate the attack. Monocytes, like I said, they're large. They have a lot of cytoplasm. They have a large nucleus. When they exit the blood vessel, they undergo diapedesis, they become macrophages, and they phagocytize virtually everything. Bacteria, viruses, cell fragments, dead cells, cellular debris, and they're the third most common. So the most common are neutrophil, then lymphocytes, then monocytes, then eosinophils, and basophils are the rarest ones. The mnemonic to remember this is never let monkeys eat bananas. Never let monkeys eat bananas. Most, second, third, fourth, and fifth. Now, if you see a lot of eosinophils when you test the blood, you can pretty much realize that there's either been a lot of antigen antibodies or there is an infection of a parasitic worm. If you see a high number of neutrophils, then it's probably a bacterial infection. If there's a high number of lymphocytes and macrophages, higher than expected, then there's probably a viral infection. Increased basophils will lead to hyperreactivity and can be involved with allergies and things like that. If we have a reduced amount of leukocytes, we call it leukopenia. Penia means lack of in the blood. If there's too many, we call it leukocytosis. And we differentiate the 5 of them for clinical diagnosis, what type of infection is involved. So if there's neutrophilia, there's extra neutrophils, so that's a bacterial infection, tissue necrosis. Neutropenia is low, so it could be anemia, it could be radiation, chemotherapy, things like that. Leukemia can cause it. Monocytes in chronic inflammatory disorders, tuberculosis, prednisone decreases it. That's why we use prednisone as an anti-rejection drug. Basophils, allergies, stress. So all lymphocytes go up with viral infections, etc. Eosinophils during allergic reactions, which is antibody, or parasitic infections. Autoimmune diseases often do this. So things like lupus and rheumatoid arthritis. I'm not, again, going to worry about some of these things that are for pathology, but leukemia is malignancy forming in leukocyte forming cells. Acute, rapid progression kills you quickly. Chronic is slower. We see it usually older, etc. Next video will be platelets.